What are the 4 rules to budgeting? What are the key myths that many people believe about budgets? And can Jesse Mecham really do 29, or should I say 31 pull-ups? We'll answer these questions and more on this, the 12th episode of the DoughRoller podcast.
Welcome to the DoughRoller podcast, where the best thing money can buy is financial freedom. We help you make more, spend less, and invest the rest. And now your host, Rob Berger.
Hey, whether you're just starting out, buried under a mountain of debt, or well on your way to financial freedom, this is the podcast to help you take your finances to the next level. Welcome to day 5 of our 31-day money challenge. Yesterday, we talked about how to make your budgets more effective and hopefully stress-free. Today, I thought we'd bring in the experts. We have on the show Jesse Mecham, who is the founder of You Need a Budget, or YNAB for short. It's the budgeting software that I use every month. I think it's hands down the best budgeting software available. But before we turn to the interview, let me give a quick shout out to our sponsors. First, we have Personal Capital. They offer free software that allows you to connect all of your investment accounts. With that, you can then track your performance. You can check the asset allocation across all of your investments at one time. And you can also track the fees. I use the software to monitor my investments every day. You can find them at personalcapital.com. And our second sponsor, Betterment, is an online platform that makes investing your money really easy. You simply select how much you want in stocks and bonds, and they then invest your money in a series of low-cost ETFs. They will rebalance your portfolio for you automatically, and they will also automatically reinvest your dividends. You can check Betterment out at betterment.com. So as you listen to today's interview, keep in mind what we covered yesterday. There really is no one right way to budget. You need to find what works best for you. If that's tracking every single dime, every single month, fine. Perhaps it's just tracking a few categories. And the same is true with the tools that you decide to use to help you budget. And I think in today's interview with Jesse, he will give you some tips that will help you do just that. Jesse, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So tell me if this is true. So we were both at FinCon this past year in St. Louis. You were there, right?
Yeah.
That's right. And my understanding is there was a pull-up competition. There
was.
And my understanding further, I feel like a lawyer cross-examining a witness. Isn't it true, sir, that you won the pull-up contest?
I did. I won it. There was some good competition this year, so I don't know how long I'm going to be able to hang on to that title, but I did win it.
Well, the rumor I heard it was that you did 29 pull-ups. Is that true?
That, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I think I actually hit 31.
Now, were these dead leg pull-ups, or were you, moving and shaking to get everything you could up above that bar?
There was no kip involved. They were strict pull-ups.
So just a quick story. I know we've got limited time, but I went to my trainer after I got back and I said, look, there's this guy. I thought 29. I didn't know it was 31. He did 29 pull-ups. I want to beat him next year. Let's see. I need a cushion. What do I need to do 40? He looked at me and said, pack your bags and move into the gym. So I guess that's out. That tells me you're a highly motivated person.
Yeah, I'm a pretty motivated guy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, as folks know, I mentioned this earlier in the show. You founded YNAB, You Need a Budget. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to, I guess, compete with the likes of Quicken and at the time Microsoft Money? Why you would do such a crazy thing?
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't think it through too much when I launched. I didn't think, there's these other things out there, and how could I ever compete? The impetus for it was my own, to be frank, my desire to make rent way back in the day and not have my wife need to work once our baby came. So we had a baby on the way. We were fairly newly married, and I still had lots of school left. So my motivation was, hey, I've done this budgeting thing with my wife. It worked well for us. Maybe I could sell it and make a little bit of extra money on the side. So I wish I had visions of I'm going to compete with the big boys and do this or that, but it wasn't anything like that. It was pretty ho-hum, so to speak.
Well, some of the best businesses come out of a business owner who had his or her own specific need, and they met it, and it turned into a product that others could use as well.
Yeah, and that's what happened with me. And it grew. The first iteration, second and third, were pretty bad as I look back today. But at the time, they did their job, and I was just trying to basically teach people a different way of looking at their money.
Well, and why don't we talk about that? I know that you talk a lot about what you call the 4 rules of budgeting, right? Can you kind of walk us through those?
Yeah, absolutely. First rule is that every dollar has a job. Every dollar is accountable. And using that zero-based approach just means that you are constantly evaluating trade-offs. And so you can say, I really want this thing now, but if I want it now, then something else has to give. A lot of times people have something give, and that's where they go to their cards and start charging things and never really pay the piper, at least not for a while, before it gets pretty painful.
Right.
So operating with a zero-based budget lets you evaluate trade-offs, and this whole life is trade-offs. And it's a great way of looking at things and understanding your priorities. And once your money starts lining up with your actual values and priorities, it starts to feel really good. Things, even though you're not making more money necessarily, you just feel good. So we have people following that first rule. The second one, we just experienced a great example of this with the holidays. We tell people to save for a rainy day, and not just this kind of nebulous emergency, but we want people to specifically say, okay, I've got the Christmas coming up, which is a year from now, or just about, and I've got maybe a vacation. I have these big bills that come that are larger and less frequent than our normal monthly bills. And we want people to break those bills up into monthly amounts and just set a little bit aside at a time. It evens out your cash flow. You don't have these big crunches where you go into panic mode or have to revert to using a credit card to cover something. And so it kind of makes everything really even, where it normally is quite a roller coaster for people.
Right.
Third rule is where we tell people you can adjust as much as you want and be flexible. We say roll with the punches. So when you set a budget today and tomorrow you get more information that you didn't have today, then you can change things and not feel bad about it. You're always just dealing with the information you have. And as you adjust and let things, let new information inform your new decisions, it's totally okay. So we tell people, hey, you'll overspend, you'll guess wrong. And it's kind of one of the myths of budgeting that we could talk about in a little bit, but it's okay to guess, be wrong, and change things. And then our last rule kind of has set us apart. We teach people to stop living paycheck to paycheck. So what you earn in February, you spend in March. What you earn in March, you spend in April. It takes a little bit of work to get there, on average about 4 months for people. But then once you're there, you're ahead, and you stay ahead. It's a cycle where you're always a month ahead, and it's a great way to live.
Yeah, that's one of the aspects I like about YNAB, because there's no greater feeling than when you stop living month to month.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, it frees you up from this really valueless bill timing to paycheck scenario.
Right.
Where, you're saying, oh, well, this is paycheck 1 and it has to cover bills A, B, and C. And it's just it's a headache that adds zero value. I mean, in the end, you're just paying a bill. You don't get any points for how fancy or complicated your process is. So if you can streamline that process, it's a win.
Okay. Now, you alluded to myths, and I'm curious what myths in budgeting you've encountered.
One that we hit a lot, and this has all been kind of learning as we go, but as we teach more and more people, we teach thousands of people each month through online webinars, and we get a lot of the same stuff that has kind of started to be codified with our team. And one of the myths is that you budget money you don't have. People will say, I'm setting up a budget, and then they'll want to say, well, I make probably about this much. Most households don't have a completely fixed income. There's usually someone earning some extra that you can't pin, the exact amount every month. So there's almost always guessing on the income side. And with that guessing comes inaccuracy, and then that inaccuracy leads to what they feel like is failure. So a lot of people want to predict what they're going to make and just forecast it all out and then live on this forecast. An extension of that myth is to go like annually. The New York Times had this really funny, absurd article. It was probably 3 years ago now, but they were saying there's a study done and people were more accurate when they would budget annually than when they would budget monthly. And I was just laughing hysterically because, that's just the most obvious statement ever. If you have someone budget for a very long period of time, then they're able to assess and average things out, and it looks pretty good. But when you're looking a month ahead and you don't know exactly what's going to hit, that's what causes pain for people. That month where things went south really bad. And so they were saying, well, hey, on average, everyone's about average. And I thought, well, of course that's correct. But you have to sit down and purposefully say, what does the money I have right now in my checking account, whether it's $10 or $10,000, what does it need to do before I'm paid again? And if people would just answer that question every time they got new money, boy, they would feel so empowered by it.
That was actually something that I struggled with when I first started to use YNAB, because I came from really a spreadsheet mentality where I'll have my income at the top, and then I want to list my plan for all of my expenses for the month. But with YNAB, that's not how it works. I've got so much money in my account at a given time.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're setting it up for the first time, in between paychecks.
Absolutely.
And so what you're teaching is, okay, wait a minute. Yes, you'll plan for more down the road, but right now you've got whatever, $3,000 in your checking account. That's all you've got to spend. How are you going to spend that $3,000, over the next few days or weeks?
Exactly. And that's the important question to answer. All the other stuff about what we're going to do 12 months from now, you don't know what you're going to do 12 months from now, and you're a horrible predictor of that. But what are you going to do with the money in your checking account right now? People can nail that question every time.
Right. One other budgeting issue that I've seen, and I have this issue myself, it's one thing to plan for periodic expenses like, gifts or vacations or car insurance. Car insurance was the one that always killed me. It comes in the same time twice a year, and it would still surprise me every single time. But what about things like when the furnace goes out? And I understand the concept of an emergency fund, of course. Mm-hmm. But how do you plan? How do you expect the unexpected? Maybe this is to your point about guessing, but how do you know how much to set aside each month for car repairs and home repairs and things like that at some point are coming down the road, but you don't know when, and you don't have any idea how much it's going to be.
Exactly. Yeah, you know that the probability is 100%, but you are at a complete loss as to the timing and the amount, and that can make it tough. But because we know that it's 100% probable that your house will need repairs or that your car will need repairs, we have to do the best we can. So 100% probability means we have to take some action. And then we're dealing with, okay, don't know when, don't know how much. What do I do here? One concrete example from my own life, we were driving a 11-year-old, I think it was about 11-year-old van, 180,000 miles, and then a 10 or 12-year-old Civic with about 160,000. And then we got this new van. Every month we would put $150 into our car repairs category. And over time, we just kind of learned, hey, that kind of covers us. But we just guessed for a really long time. And then you see the category balance go up and up and up, or you see it suddenly get raided with a transmission disaster. And you think, okay, maybe we were underestimating there, and you would make adjustments. That's part of that Rule 3. But what we did with the car repairs, we were doing $150 a month, and then we bought this new van. We've had it for about a year now. And the van, of course, has no problems. It had this great warranty. It was super fancy. And my wife looks at me and says, we have $2,500 sitting in this car repairs category that we'd accumulated over probably a 3-year, 4-year time. And she goes, you really think it's reasonable to keep putting $150 in there? I mean, the Honda Civic behaves just like a Honda Civic. It just keeps going. And the van is new and had that warranty. So we were able to say, you know what? We can stop funding it for a while and see what happens. Mm-hmm. But it's always something where you just got to look and guess and adjust as you learn more. But the important part is that you're taking action because of that 100% probability.
So I'm curious for you, what do you actually do with the money? Do you leave it in your checking account? Do you take it out and put it somewhere else?
We leave it all in our checking account.
You do?
Yeah. We our checking account balance, and this isn't, I'm not bragging, there are a lot of YNABers that have the same issue. The checking account balance gets really big because you're saving for Christmas. We've got our emergency fund in there. We've got home repairs. We've been saving to do some decorating in the house, all vacation stuff, and then the normal lane bills like property taxes and things. So you get this big balance. And the bank, you go to the bank and deposit a check or do whatever, and they start trying to pitch you all sorts of hey, what are you doing? This is crazy. You know, they're used to seeing $300 in checking accounts. And we just do it for simplicity. You know, just everything's there. We never decide how to spend based on what the balance is. Everything's based on those categories.
Okay.
And that's how those decisions are
I
guided.
take it if someone wanted to move it to a savings account, the YNAB software could easily accommodate that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. If you want to catch a little interest, or you're just uncomfortable with that until you get really comfortable with deciding what your money should do based on your categories, that's totally fine. Lots of YNABers have several accounts. We've kind of streamlined it over the years.
You know, two things that I love about YNAB. One is the classes that you offer. You know, sort of the educational component. It's not just here's some software, good luck, and Godspeed, right? You help. And then the forum, I'm actually looking at the forum now. It's an incredibly active forum.
It is.
And so I'm curious, you know, since your experience with this software, the classes that you and your company teach, the forum, what kinds of, do you see folks making common mistakes when it comes to budgeting?
They do. One relates to that myth where they budget money they don't have. They want to project way far out into the future. Another one that's really common is they choose complexity over simplicity. I don't know why, but I think we kind of feel like, hey, we're doing money, so this should be hard. And so we'll see people with 3 different checking accounts because some bills are paid out here or there. And it's almost like they've just built up this cruft over time of different accounts that they've used for whatever reason. So we try and talk people into like, hey, consolidate that down, you know, make your life a little easier. Another one that we see that's kind of a common mistake is people expect perfection and they get really down on it. And we cite Rule 3, we say, hey, roll with the punches. But they want to be able to predict for the first time in their life, you know, accurately predict what they're going to spend in restaurants. So a lot of times I'll tell people just getting started, I'll say, hey, don't even worry about the budget. Just record stuff for a while. See what happens, what you learn. I mean, you don't go from, like you were saying, you don't go from someone that, you know, pops off the couch, is overweight by, 70 pounds and says, hey, I want to do 40 pull-ups. You know, they'll get there eventually, but you wouldn't start there. You'd start with, hey, let's try one. Let's maybe use a band, you know, and different approaches.
You've been watching my workout, haven't you?
I wasn't specifically, referencing you, but baby steps the
first
whole way in.
The first time I did a pull-up about a year and a half ago with this new trainer that he had like 2 or 3 different bands. He goes, I'm going to run out of bands with you. It was ridiculous anyway.
But how is it different a year and a half from now? You know?
Not as many bands.
So that's
no, I can do a few unassisted, but I guarantee you I don't get close to 31. Well, I will leave links to, of course, YNAB and your forum in the show notes. One of the things about the forum that I'll say, in addition to topics on how to use YNAB and the 4-rule methodology, one thing you have in there are success stories. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's very good for folks that may be struggling as a way to kind of see what other people have accomplished, to see what mistakes they've learned from, and just to get kind of a good boost of motivation and inspiration.
Yeah, they're a fantastic resource, and I don't know why our forums are so friendly, why people there are so helpful, but they are, and we love it. So it's a great resource.
Well, listen, Jesse, I appreciate your time. Before I let you go, one last question. Can you tell us what your you didn't know this one was coming, but can you tell us what your favorite personal finance or money book is?
Favorite book, probably the old one, Your Money or Your Life.
Oh, that's a great one.
Yeah, by Joe Dominguez. It transforms the way you think about money, and that currency becomes time and becomes your life. And so you value it differently. You're a little more careful with it. I liked everything about the book except the investing advice. I didn't really care for, but everything about how to think about your money was just phenomenal.
Jesse, I couldn't agree with you more. That was exactly my view of the book after I read it. But a great book. I'll definitely leave a link to it in the show notes. Hey, cool. Listen, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks, Robert. I appreciate it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the interview with Jesse and you found it helpful and useful. I will include links to all of the resources mentioned during the interview in the show notes, of course. I've used YNAB now for a long time, and I think, as I said, it's hands down the best budgeting tool available. But regardless of whether you decide to give it a try or not, and they do have a free 34-day trial if you want to use it. Again, there'll be links in the show notes. You should check out the YNAB site. It has some great resources, classes, and a really awesome and vibrant forum. You can get a lot of help there. I'll leave links to all of that information in the show notes. So that brings our podcast to a close. The show notes for this episode you'll find at DoughRoller.net/podcast 12. That's podcast followed by the number 12. You can leave a voicemail for me with a question or comment that I'll play in future episodes. Just go to speakpipe.com/DoughRoller. Of course, you can email me. Email address is dr@DoughRoller.net. I read every email and I respond to every email. Things have been getting a little crazy, so it may take me a few days to get back to you, but I will respond. You can subscribe to this podcast. Just go to DoughRoller.net/iTunes. That will redirect you to where this podcast resides. You can subscribe there. You can also leave a review. And lastly, subscribe to our weekly newsletter. You can do that at DoughRoller.net/newsletter. It's a free newsletter that goes out every Saturday at 8 p.m. So until next time, remember, the best thing money can buy is financial freedom.